This is a place called Saqqara, and this is the step pyramid of Djoser. And that's the oldest stone building on the world. And here we're going to be activating the third eye. And this structure I find really fascinating. The scaffolding kind of throws you off a little bit, but this structure reminds me so much of the pineal gland. So you are all familiar with the pineal gland, you know, the seat of so much of our psychic and spiritual awareness and perception, you know, right behind our quote-unquote third eye.
But not what it looks like. Is that what it looks like, the pineal gland?
The pineal, well, it's called pineal because it looks like a pine cone, and it's sort of like a vestigial eye. So, and it's sensitive to light. It actually responds to light, so.
And the pineal gland is the center of our psychic abilities, the balcony from which we can connect to all things within our true north within ourselves.
So one of the things that you see here is you see this iconography of these cobras. So that's a nice shot of it. And again, this is the oldest stone structure on the planet. You see these cobras all over the place. So, you know, if you think about going back to the image of the uraeus, of the rearing cobra right over the third eye of the pharaoh, of the high initiate, you know, that's exactly what this iconography is telling us, that this is where our third of the kundalini is you know, rises, and our spiritual sight is awakened in this place. And then,
how old is that? Can you go back to it?
Yeah, that's
older than the pyramid, you said?
Yes. Well, this is the first pyramid, so this is called a step pyramid, and I could give you the rationale of Egyptology about how this got built. The ancient Egyptians used to be buried under something called a mastaba, which is sort of a slope-sided platform, and Djoser's architect Imhotep, who became the Greek god Asclepius. He was a doctor, and you know, he was a genius actually. He had the idea, and we know what the interior structure of this pyramid is. He had the idea of taking a mastaba and putting another mastaba on top of it, and then a mastaba on top of that, and you know, and so they think of this as a proto pyramid, this stepped structure, which is just these mastabas that have been stacked up.
That's not the other side of the Sakkara, right?
That is Sakkara, yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Because you call it a pyramid now. Right?
Well, that's what they refer to it as. They call it a step pyramid, you know, to be specific about it. So,
are those turtle heads?
No,
they're cobras.
Huh?
Cobras.
Bunnies.
Cobras.
Cobras.
Yeah.
Oh,
Again, you know, the
turtles.
yeah, but also notice, you remember our friend in,
Oh, I see, it's a cobra,
yeah, you can see that. You remember the profile of the guy with the knives doing the teaching. He doesn't have a cobra head, you know, it's, anyway. And you know, and the Egyptians were so specific, like incredibly, phenomenally, there are no accidents anywhere in ancient Egyptian expression. You know, so the difference in the thickness and the roundness of a cobra snout as opposed to a lizard snout, they knew it. And they communicated it with clarity and intention and meaning, you know. And then we're going to go to the Giza Plateau, to the Sphinx, and to the Great Pyramid. So we will go and we will stand between the paws of the Sphinx. Hopefully we won't be too goofy, but you know, whatever. It's hard not to get a little giddy when you're down there. I mean, let's face it. Yeah, exactly. I've seen, you know, we've played Nerf football here. We've thrown frisbees, and this is such a powerful place to be for a whole variety of reasons. You know, I mean, this is a structure that is so deeply mythic in the collective consciousness. Anything from Edgar Cayce and, you know, the Hall of Records, I mean, just everything about it is, you know, to stand in that spot is, wow, it's almost overwhelming.
What does the Sphinx represent?
Well, that's a good question. This is a really deep controversy. There's no one was ever buried here. Now, just very briefly on this subject, let me back up a little bit.
It looks like...
So the pyramid age from here through the Great Pyramid, through all of the other subsequent pyramids, lasted a little bit less than 300 years, about 250 years. There are pyramids where bodies have been found. There was a Djoser was found in here. So there were pyramids, absolutely, were used as burial chambers. There were other pyramids, all of the pyramids on the Giza plateau, and some of the other pyramids that are in Saqqara where no body was ever found, and none of the trappings of Egyptian burials or any of those things were ever found. So we kind of have two classes of pyramids, and there's a lot of evidence to show that there were pyramids that were built at a different age, in a different way, and used for a different purpose. And that then the pharaonic Egyptians came along and went, hey, those things are cool, let's make some of those. And built pyramids themselves that they used indeed as burial chambers. And so one of the things that's fascinating is that in a single generation, in about 50 years, you go from this all the way up to the Great Pyramid, the largest, most perfectly aligned stone building on the planet. I mean, you know, volumes and volumes and volumes have been written on it, and you know. And then from the Great Pyramid, if you adhere to the traditional dating, you have this long, slow decline until finally you get pyramids in the final decades of the Pyramid Age that are just piles of rock right now, you know? Well, technology doesn't work that way. It would be like, oh yeah, well I remember that Commodore 64 was so much faster than my MacBook Pro. You know, that's kind of the analogy that we're looking at with pyramid technology. It makes no sense. It's completely counterintuitive. And also from this to the Great Pyramid, they went from 0 to 200 overnight. Again, you know, these are some of the things that point to the fact that the Great Pyramid was there before. And the Egyptians went, let's make one of those, you know.